egged on by the media, the Biden administration is unnecessarily antagonizing the government of India, which has been a close ally of the United States. And the reason for this new campaign of denouncing India is basically because India is not going along with the Biden administration in its position on Ukraine. So Biden has arm twisted a bunch of countries, mostly European countries, but some others also, to approve all these sanctions. And the sanctions also involve not buying oil from Russia, not doing trade deals with Russia, and certainly not buying weapons from Russia. But India has an ongoing weapons deal with Russia, in which the Indians have agreed to purchase S-400 missile defense systems from Russia. And India has been continuing with that transaction, which actually dates back for a couple of years. So it's not something India newly agreed to do, but the Indians aren't willing to stop doing it. The other thing that the Indians aren't willing to stop doing is follow America's lead and stop buying oil from Russia. Now, let's remember that India and China are perhaps they're the two largest countries in the world, but they're also two of the fastest growing countries in the world. And they're coming up from the bottom. They're coming up from positions, in India's case, of really almost scandalous worldwide, by worldwide standards, poverty. So the Indians are like, we need the oil. And since the Russians are one of the biggest oil producers in the world, and India does not have a whole lot of oil, we're going to continue buying it from Russia. So India's motives here are driven by self-interest. India isn't even buying weapons from Russia in order to sort of threaten the United States. India's worries have to do with Pakistan and have to do with radical Islam. And so India is trying to fortify its defense in those areas. But because India is not getting on the bandwagon, it's not saluting, it's not playing the game, you got this sudden turn on India and criticism of India. And what I find interesting is that the Indians, instead of just taking it, are actually pushing back. Here's the Indian External Affairs Minister. His name is S. Jaishankar. And he was at the 4th U.S.-India Ministerial Dialogue at the State Department. And instead of just being humble and saying, we're the guilty party. And of course, there are now these media reports suddenly popping out, all the human rights violations in India and so on. So India is being sort of castigated across the board. And this guy basically goes, well, if Americans are concerned about the human rights situation in India, he goes, we Indians are concerned about the human rights situation in America. Take that. So having said that, the Indian minister kind of backed off a little bit and said, look, the areas we can cooperate with the Americans and the areas we might disagree, but it's all within a framework of that this is a normal way that countries deal with each other. But I thought it'd be interesting to look at what this man is saying, because I think part of what he's saying is that at one time, America could easily say things like, we have free speech in America, whereas in India, if you criticize the government, the goons will show up to beat you up. But now America can't say that because we don't have free speech in America. And in many respects, it's far worse than in India. In India, you may not be able to just explicitly criticize the administration, but in a whole bunch of other areas, you can discuss topics like climate change. You can discuss all kinds of topics without getting banned. Whereas in America, you're banned. There are whole subjects that are put out of bounds, including, by the way, the open discussion of the Ukraine war. Religious freedom. At one point, Americans could say, well, you know what? There are all these kind of religious nationalist movements in India. There's a new kind of affirmation of Hindus movement called Hindutva, and that is making it more difficult to be a Christian or to be a Muslim in India. And there's a lot of truth to that. But the truth is also that in America now religious freedom is imperiled in all kinds of ways, not imperiled by one religion being preferred over another, but imperiled by a radical secularism that tries to shut down religious expression, certainly exclude it from the public square, and in some cases impose discriminatory shutdowns that apply to churches, but don't apply to other, bars can stay open, nail salons can stay open, clubs can stay open, but churches have to remain closed. So religious freedom has now become an ambiguous issue in America. Voter integrity. Yeah, there's been voter integrity problems in India for a long time. Now there are voter integrity problems in America. going after political opponents. That's true in India to some degree. It's now true in America to a large degree. So I think the point here is that America needs to get off its high horse in these times, because we're no longer the champions of the free world. We're no longer the champions of human rights. There's just as much, if not more, violations of human rights going on right now in this country, are there in many other places in the world, including India.